one morning I wake up, turn the TV on, having my coffee, and they're talking about my financial institution as a headline that just filed for bankruptcy. Yeah, that's how my morning in North
Your
Carolina
3
started
million
in
plus liquid
February.
asset gone.
Yeah, and that was in February
In
of
2013, California spent $10 million for quote unquote the war on homeless, right? In
yeah,
2019, it went up to 444 million, right? And
yes,
just last year, the state of California is going to spend $1 billion to fight the homeless. And what has
yes,
the homeless numbers gone? It went up 15%. So clearly, and this is happening every single major city from Seattle to New York. I'll put the numbers there, but clearly, throwing money at this war on homeless is kind of like the war on drugs. It's
fitness, foodies, and the fabulous absurd. From burpees to Camus, you're never gonna know what you're gonna get from your Unc, Burpee Yoga Uncle.
like, ibong, subscribe, Bokurun Tonobat. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. In Bengali. All right, thank you very much. Your Uncle Burpee Yoga with a mayoral candidate for 2022 Oakland for mayor, Derrick Soo, and he is a very inspiring figure. And from what I know, basically, he was a multimillionaire. He did contracting work for the government, and because of the subprime crisis, he lost it all. And currently, now he's homeless, and he's an advocate to end homelessness, and we're going to talk about that as well as his experience. One of the great things that I read through philosophy was by Albert Camus, and he has a book, The Myth of Sisyphus, which talks about the absurdness of life. And I don't know. I mean, this is to me, it's unfathomable. So, Derek, tell us your story of how you end up where you're at.
well, starting from the beginning, my government work, I was actually working in counterterrorism for our United States government, for the Department of Defense. I was a top secret classified agency that, up until just a few years ago, nobody had heard of, which is JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, and so I was with that organization for a number of years. I interacted with all of our tier one counterterrorism groups, organizations, and agencies. And a lot of times I moved around through all of those agencies. And then I had a heart attack, a mild heart attack, back in 2005, which took me out of field operations because that's where I was. That's my specialty, field operations. And I oversaw a region. The entire world is divided into 8 regions, and 6 are deemed dangerous or have dangerous situations. And I oversaw one of those during one of the craziest times back then. A lot of nuclear uh, co-destruction was being tossed at a lot of countries back then. So, but anyway, that heart attack took me out of field operations and put me behind a desk. They gave me 2 years behind a desk, so to speak, so that I qualified as a full retirement. But the thing
So you're
is,
you're on your way
I,
to your
I don't
retirement American
I,
dreams.
I don't get a retirement because I was a contractor. So I'm independent of the United States government, but I still am associated with the government. So I don't receive a pension. I receive my contract price, which was, you know, a really nice number. Now, typically my income back in the day was just short of 400K a year. So that's what
Wow.
so I was upper 1% tile in earned income annually. But also, my life was always in danger because I could be killed at any time. And then because of my top secret work, if I was caught behind enemy lines or doing things that I shouldn't be on it in the enemy's terms, I would be, so to speak, the United States government wouldn't know anything about me.
Yeah,
And
disavow.
so, yeah, disavow me completely. And so that was my line of work. If they killed me, there was nobody, going to be concerned about me, so to speak. And so that was my work. When I retired in 2007, I had a little over $3.25 million in liquid assets.
Wow.
And I was also going through a divorce at the time. And so uh, I had already started talking about work, which would have been on the East Coast on a satellite project, which is now underway because it got restarted by Donald Trump. The project was actually stopped a long time ago when Obama came in 2009 when he took office. Within an hour of him taking the office, the satellite work that I was going to be assigned to was canceled, and so that took me out of work. And during that time, I was living back east. I had already resettled back east in North Carolina. And one morning, I wake up, turn the TV on, having my coffee, and they're talking about my financial institution as a headline that just filed for bankruptcy. Yeah, that's how my morning in North
Your
Carolina
3 million
started.
plus liquid
February.
acid gone.
Yeah, and that was in February of 2008. So it was just in front of Chinese New Year's and also my birthday.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was a double whammy that year. Panic set in because I literally had nothing. And so, how I got by for a little bit, I'm thinking I'm going back to work back there. But I hate to say it, but there was a lot of racism back there. Unfortunately, what was going on at the time, a lot of our American manufacturers, because I lived in an area where it was a lot of manufacturing in North Carolina, and they were taking the NAFTA and going overseas or across outside our borders, taking those jobs with them.
Yeah, because it's
And
pennies to the
so,
dollar for labor. Nothing you can
exactly.
do. It's tough. Yeah.
And
So
so
from
it
there,
was
how did
horrible.
you get to? Yeah. From there, how do you get? So after that, I mean, how did you get to Oakland and how are you subsisting for this many years? I mean, what's been happening?
It's been very creative the whole time, and a lot of adjustments. Back in North Carolina, what I did, I actually took the last bit of money that I had in my pocket. I bought a 20-foot trailer, a cargo trailer. But then I had advertised on Craigslist that I'm bringing this cargo trailer, brand new, unregistered, to California. And that's what paid my moving. I had a half-ton pickup truck. I could pull it. So I bought the trailer, loaded all my possessions in North Carolina into that trailer, came back to California. So it was just the fuel cost. Once I got back to California, I had a place to put all of my possessions. And then the very next day, I took that trailer, empty, clean, and brand new, to the new owner who paid me cash.
Wow,
And
that's
so
pretty
that was
cool.
how I creatively got back to California, because that cash covered all my expenses getting back here, plus the trailer, and the fella had a brand new trailer.
So from there, did you have a place to live, or what happened once you got
Well,
here?
I had a job that had been that I had arranged back in North Carolina. It was a maintenance manager job in Union City, about half hour south of me. And so I was overseeing the maintenance department. Uh, that didn't work out really well. I was a live on site supervisor. Uh, I like to fix things right, and businesses like to fix things half-assed.
Well,
And
they like to
so,
fix things the cheapest way possible. That's pretty much how
yeah,
it works.
which is called half-assed.
Yes, that's basically what the
I'm not going
definition
to
of a
be nice
corporation.
about it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definition of a corporation is basically an insane
Yeah,
person, right? So
yeah,
now,
yeah.
so I'm understanding that you've been homeless most of the time since you moved to California. You're stationed, but you're pretty much in Oakland now, and you're
Yeah.
running for the 2022 Oakland's mayor. You told me there's like 15 candidates or something like that. Is that right?
There's 15 additional candidates, and not including me.
And then
And
the
it's
election is going
crazy.
to be, yeah, the election is going to be November 8th, 2022. So what are you basically running your platform on?
What I'm running on is one of the some of the very hot spots here in Oakland. One of the biggest topics is homelessness and dealing with the homeless. Another one is the illegal dumping, which has been a major crisis here in Oakland. And then also affordable housing. And then fourth behind that is creation of living wage jobs for Oakland. And so I've covered all of those uh, aspects during my campaign while I'm out talking with people. First thing that I'm doing, I'm talking about how we deal with the homeless crisis. Oakland last year passed EMP, which is Emergency Encampment Management Plan policy. And so what they've done, they've pretty much made all of Oakland, 92% of Oakland, illegal for homeless encampments. And so I'm one of the very few that actually sits in the low impact zones. And so I actually was a sanctioned camp. I still am a sanctioned camp by Oakland's recognition. I'm actually sanctioned camp number one and the only independent sanctioned camp by the city of Oakland that the city supports. And what I mean by support, they bring porta potties in here. They have trash pickup every week. And we had a shower and laundry service uh,
They're taking that
available here.
away. I know
They
that.
took, yeah, they're taking that away, uh, effective the 2nd of March.
You're right. So
And
there's a
so,
link down there on my description for the GoFundMe for Derrick to get some more funds to build one. There's a video on your channel that you just posted a few days ago about you building it. It's something that is similar being used in Tonga too for right now for what happened with their things. So let me get some information out there. I'll put the more information once I finish post-producing this. But in
mhm,
2013, California spent $10 million for quote unquote the war on homeless, right? In
yeah,
2019, it went up to 444 million, right? And
yes,
just last year, the state of California is going to spend $1 billion to fight the homeless. And what has
yes,
the homeless numbers gone? It went up 15%. So clearly, and this is happening every single major city from Seattle to New York. I'll put the numbers there. But clearly, throwing money at this war on homeless is kind of like, tell me how can we help the homeless, because obviously money is not it's that's not the way to do it unless we give it to you directly. I mean, not you, but all the homeless. I mean, can you imagine giving $1 billion and divvy up to all the homeless in the whole entire state of California? I think they'd be all like millionaires.
yeah, almost.
A
What
billion
we need,
with a
yes,
B. I'm like so incensed when I heard that, and when I found out, I was like, "What? They spent $1 billion?"
hmm
But
what we
it's
need to do
gross.
is start creating some positive policies with our politicians and cities to create community land trusts. The community land trust, what's nice about that, it's already there. City owns it. And these are parcels of property that have several different purposes. Number one, it's set aside for open space, for parks, and for good. And so that's one of the purposes for community land trust. The other one is that we can use a lot of those community land trusts to create tiny home villages to address the affordable housing issue, which is at the root of homelessness, because people are just being priced out of the market. Here in Oakland, I'm in one of the most dangerous parts of Oakland, and the rent is just for a one-bedroom apartment starts at $1,800.
That's crazy.
But yet, my disability income is only $1,100. And so you can obviously see that there's no way I can get housing, let alone even pay the utilities on an apartment. Because when you go in an apartment, yeah, your water might be free, but your electricity and gas isn't.
Yeah. So, but in terms of homelessness, there's all these misnotions of only druggies and drug addicts are there. So obviously there is a segment of that. I've been to LA. I've been to many parts of the country, from Columbus, Ohio to Tennessee. I mean, everywhere. So there is the evidence of a mental illness and also drug infested problem. And then there are people like you who is neither, and you're just trying to get by, to become a citizen of our country, and trying to live the American dream. How can we assist these drug addicts and mental illnesses? Because in New York, they're so nuts. They're actually opening up 2 centers in cost of hundreds of millions of dollars to allow drug addicts to go there and shoot up under supervision. And this is tax dollars money. I mean, like, why can't we just get them into rehab versus allowing them to take drugs and we supervise them? It doesn't even make sense.
Well, there's there's a lot of different reasons that's working and not working. Here in California, we have a Right to Privacy Act, and so a lot of folks that go into these programs know that they are totally anonymous in terms of uh, their name being used outside of that agency, and they don't even have to stay in the program. And sometimes they go into the program because there's a promise of housing. So as soon as they get that housing, they drop out of the drug rehab or the alcohol abatement program. I have to deal with this all the time. But here's the change. We've made changes to a private program. And here in my camp, we've been running that program. And we when I returned back in 2021, we had 32 people here. And then once we had established the baseline of what everybody's needs were, we went and addressed with different agencies for that ongoing continuum of care, COC, and made sure that that COC followed them when they went into the housing, because we know that if they have COC, continuum of care, to assist them in housing and continue that abatement program, they are less likely to fail at that program. They are
But
more
your
likely
program doesn't cost like $200 million.
No,
Why
no.
can't they do what
See,
you do in New York? I mean, I got some other crazy numbers. Like in California, what I tell you, that they're spending $1 billion for the budget for the war on homeless. Guess how much
yeah.
they're spending for gang reductions? $8 million. All right. Guess how
Yeah,
much they're
not much.
spending on small business help? 16 million. But we're spending $1 billion on homeless, and it's grew by 15%. How much are the government planning to spend now? I mean, it's insane. I mean,
Yeah.
the money,
Well,
all the
Governor
corruption.
Newsom, yeah, he's got, unfortunately, all the cities right now are using one particular type of shelter. That's palletshelter.com.
Gee, I want
They're not cheap. These
no.
each of these each of these units are very expensive. They're almost $2,300 each. And the state of California got a contract with Pallet Shelter to provide all the shelters for all of these tiny home villages, which was my idea that I started pushing.
Speaking of
He was
homeless shelters, right? So in 2016, LA approved a $1.2 billion program to build freaking 1,200 units. They just got audited. So right now, the average cost of each of those dumbass units are $837,000.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah.
837 for one unit. And you're telling me you can build the stuff with, I mean, the more I listen,
Yeah.
the more I get incensed. I'm probably gonna have a heart attack. I mean,
Because
the
we
money
can set up,
is not the issue. It's
because we can create community land trusts, tiny home villages inside of a year and populate that inside a year with sewer, solar electricity, and security.
four pennies
And
to the dollars to what they're gonna spend.
yeah,
I mean,
and we would have we wouldn't need that kind of money because we would have participation and partnerships with large businesses which want to create goodwill with the community.
exactly. They don't
And
want
so
the
that's what
homeless.
we're
They want you guys
partnering
to
with.
work and they
Yeah.
want you guys to have a living space where they'll
Mhm.
feel safe just like you guys will feel safe and you wouldn't be living with the
And
rats.
mhm. And they also want to be able to provide the materials for the creation of those tiny home villages. And so it's a real good win-win-win situation for everybody,
Yeah.
and without having tax dollars.
Well,
And
speaking of
so
tax dollars,
mhm.
maybe you should go apply for a job because they're going to open up. San Francisco is planning to open up a new department of homeless, right? At a
Yeah.
tune of $667 million. I mean, what is that going to help the homeless? Why don't you just give the money to people like you? I mean,
Yeah.
and these, by the way, all these numbers I'm getting is directly from the government's
Mhm.
website. You can search it for
Yeah.
yourself. I mean, people are just being blown over. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody wants to help the homeless, but not at the
Yeah.
way the government's doing it, man.
I make office, I'm going to be dealing with them.
Don't you have a target on your back though, because you're so well known, not just on the internet? And then how does the Oakland general population that don't that really don't keep and being informed? How do they react to your candidacy to be a mayor?
Well, it's real interesting, and the attacks always come from the wealthy zone. It's not the poor people that are trashing me online. It's the wealthy people. The people that were my people in my district here in Oakland are trashing me. Yeah, they're calling me a gun nut. Uh, you're homeless. You can't get out of homeless. How are you going? You're just going to send the city into worse situation, and then we have a whole city of homeless. Is what I hear. And these are people that their opinions are backed by a lot of money, unfortunately. And a lot of what started here in Oakland, I hate to say, we went from a few hundred people to nearly 2,000 people
So
with
right
him,
now,
and then
I
it's
think
just
right
gotten
now,
worse.
yeah, the last I checked in Oakland, there's about 5,000 homeless. Is that about right, or I'm wrong?
We just finished our pit count this week, and the numbers are actually going to be released next week from Alameda County. So I'll know more next week when those numbers get released. And so that the pit count was February 23rd, and they started at 4 in the morning. And what they did, they drove every district, had people and driving every single street, walked every park, looked behind every trash barrel, everything to count homeless people. And then also we added in those that were in the pallet shelter villages, Days Hotel under the Project Room Key and Project Home Key. Well, not Project Home Key anymore, but just Project Room Key, awaiting to go into Project Home Key. And so we have two full hotels there of people waiting to go into housing from just Project Room Key.
Wow. So in general, there's a lot of misconceptions of being homeless. So can you give like a general rundown from the time when you wake up to the time when you go to bed, all the stuff that you need to do to to I don't want to say to be homeless, but to be where you're at, because most people don't know. They just see people either living in the tent or they're standing on the corner of a asking for money. They don't know I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I'm
Yep.
intrigued. Like, how's it when you wake up to when you go to sleep? What is a typical day like?
Well, here's a typical day for but many homeless. I'm not saying all, because I'm not one of those that do this. But a lot
Exactly.
of the homeless folks are up all night, and they stay up all night because that's the most dangerous hours. That's when their stuff is stolen, when they're murdered, they're assaulted, beat up, uh, set on fire. That's the
Or
time.
raped.
Right? Yeah, we've had several women here that have been raped, and fortunately, we've been able to catch those perpetrators. But those are people sleep during the day. They go to
Oh,
bed at 7 in the morning, and
oh.
then they wake up at 4 or 5 in the afternoon when the sun is setting. So my day is actually pretty quiet. I just make sure that nobody's messing with them or doing any harm down
So
there.
what do you
Because
do? What do they do for food? Do they go to shelter? I mean, how do they go to food? And the shower, obviously, you guys have shower where you're at, and you got to get it replaced. What about food and other stuff? What about medical health and things like that?
Well, one of the nice things, um, if you followed me, you may remember that I actually sat on a board for healthcare for the homeless. And so through that, I was able to get the mobile uh, clinic back into the homeless sites. We got that back online. We also got uh, private healthcare systems to get their mobile clinics into the homeless sites. In fact, I got two of them. We have Lifelong Medical, and we have Roots Community Healthcare. Uh, Roots takes care of East Oakland, and how we divided Oakland for the two agencies. Lifelong also has a downtown Oakland office. So we took 14th Avenue here in Oakland as the dividing line. So everything north of east of 14th Avenue went to Lifelong, and everything south went to Roots Community Healthcare.
And then
So they send their mobile clinics out to the camps,
what
uh,
about food? Do you
and
in
then
general, what
food.
do homeless do for food?
We have a lot of access here in Oakland because of the 501s that we deal with. And so food is not a problem. We have 501s dropping plenty of food off. We also have a lot of community activists that are dropping food off, and certain camps also receive drops directly from Alameda County Food Bank. So food is not an issue for a great portion of the folks. We this week, yesterday, we just had a food drop off
Oh,
Saturday, and it's a whole van that comes in. It's fresh produce. Sometimes there's meat that is nearing its expiration from Safeway, and so rather than tossing it into the dumpster, Safeways and grocery stores they donate those meats rather than throwing them away. And so we're usually recipients of that. Also, before that, we had a food recycling program where the high tech companies would have caterers with mountains of food all day long,
exactly.
and so
Wow.
we were sending people out to go pick that up. 501s would go pick that up in the afternoon, and then in the evening would distribute that to the large camps with folks, and be able to service a huge amount of people. We also have some schools that are now signed on, rather than those lunches that went in the trash that didn't get eaten that day, get served over here to this particular camp. And then what we have left over is in our refrigerator, and that's distributed to the entire neighborhood. And so folks that are housed, that are running short on funds or food, are always welcome down here to come to the community pantry.
And then so you have running water and electricity. Your electricity is self-generated from solar, or they actually
Yes.
is
Yeah,
self-generated. And what about the water?
my water, I actually worked with EV Bud, a former employer of mine back in the 80s. And so we changed some policies. I've had an antiquated one removed, and 2 new policies established. And then now we have uh, Good Samaritan water access
Wow.
here as a standard operating procedure of EB mud. And
So it
so we
seems like
have
so it
plenty
seems
of
like
water.
the biggest challenge for homeless, and I would say you speak for almost the entire country, is actually not the people wanting to become unhomeless, and not for people wanting to help, and not for money. It's mostly the politician.
It's the
I mean,
politicians, and then
there's
the
so much
NIMBYs.
money.
There's so many NIMBYs also. A lot of those NIMBYs are the rich folks, and
What is a
they control
NIMBY?
the power. Not in my backyard.
Oh,
And we see them everywhere. Every project, even good housing projects, have
oh my God.
NIMBYs. The NIMBYs are always going to pop up. They're
It
the ones
remind me.
cost
Yes, you're right.
cost.
Yes. Rob Reiner, the guy, he's like the director. It remind me
Mhm.
of him trying to stop housings being built in a subdivision. Only
Yep.
reason is because it would interrupt his view or something. So he stopped that building for like 10, 15 years,
Hmm.
all because of environmental reason, whatever. You guys can look it up. But Rob Reiner, director, he actually did that. And
Yep.
that's part
He
of the
sure did.
reason why there's not enough housing in California because of that. I mean, I think he lives in some rich place over there.
Yeah.
But
And then
it's
we
asinine.
had one right here. Yeah. We had one here. A town that has not had any housing construction in 50 years. There was a plan to put new housing in a zone that was butts up against wildlife. But then the city council said, "Oh, there's an endangered mountain lion that inhabits that zone." And so
Maybe it's an endangered flea too. They'll find one, something
for
endangered.
2 weeks, they there was a court battle over that, and then they threw it out. Finally, everybody said that's ridiculous, and the housing is part of the rent up. The regional housing needs allocation. And so by them sidestepping it in that manner, they said the renta is not important because if you look at renta, the rentas run 8-year periods, 8 to 10 year periods. So we just started the renta meetings for Oakland, and Oakland is required under that uh, regulation to create over the next 8 years 26,000 new affordable housing units. In the last renta, we did barely get to 1/3 of the number, which was significantly lower.
Why do people want the government to be bigger? They're obviously not very efficient. It's so
No.
I never understood it. You know, I'll give you some more numbers. In 2015 in New York, the homeless war costed the city 950 million. This is 2015.
Hmm.
In 2022, it's at $2 billion. That's twice of
Yeah.
California. And
Yeah.
that's more money. $2 billion is more money that they're spending to fight the homeless in New York than the entire city's budget for public universities for every single student. That is crazy. Like I
Hmm.
mean, people are getting rich off of this. It's not at the backs of homeless. They're not really there to help the homeless. And I want to drive this to everybody that watches it. Do your own research. It's your unk. All right, right? I could have information that might be incorrect, but do your own research and open your eyes because the mainstream media is not telling you any of this stuff. The money is there. People want to help the homeless, but it's the politicians that you guys vote in that, for some reason, not in my backyard, they don't want it to happen because they're making so much money from it.
Hmm.
It's so sad.
Exactly.
So hopefully,
And
how can they contribute to your campaign?
right now, I'm still setting up the final for my mayoral campaign contributions that should be ready in the coming month in March. and I have a cap limit of $800 donations for any donations towards my mayoral campaign. What I'm also trying to do is avoid accepting any mayoral campaigns from business or organizations, because the two top candidates right now that are currently leading have no relationship with business, have no relationship with their districts, and so they're essentially buying votes. Lauren Taylor, who's District 6, has done nothing that I can think of for his district that would be called memorable. But yet he has the largest war chest going into the mayoral campaign at just short of $200,000.
Must be those NIMBY people.
Yeah, well, he's again in an area where there's some very wealthy people. It's Mills College area. So I lived at that. I grew up in that area. So that's where my parents' home was. So there's some definite money influence coming from the hills around Keller Avenue, Skyline Boulevard, Skyline High School, the rich kids school, uh, and also where Libby Schaff came from, because that school serves Montclair district also of Oakland.
So now,
And
can anybody donate to your campaign, or it gotta be from the city of Oakland?
well, right now, like I said, I'm the campaign doesn't
I mean,
officially.
personal people,
Oh,
like regular people. Can they?
for personal, like I said, it will be set up this coming month. If you want to do something, I do have a PayPal account which I will be using for that particular campaign. So I'll
But they
send
don't
you
have to
the.
be. They don't have to be from Oakland, for example. I have a
No,
lot of
it could be
audience
anywhere.
from all around the world and
Mhm.
around the country. They can all donate. They don't have to be like
Correct.
living in Oakland to donate to your
No,
campaign.
no, no. It could be anybody, but they do have to identify themselves,
Oh,
because I do have
obviously.
to identify each and every donor to my political uh, commission, and so they see who gave what, and then uh, so everything's very transparent,
Right. No
and
businesses, no
mhm,
private organizations, just
right,
individuals, less than $800, and anybody
correct,
worldwide can donate to your campaign. We have
correct,
to fight corruptions in the political world. I mean, every aspect. And homeless right now, at the rate it's going, it ain't going to be fixed. But more and more of your tax
yeah,
dollars are going to go toward it, even though
hmm,
it's not going toward the homeless directly. It's like so many quote unquote nonprofit organizations.
right,
You give them $1, and literally 5 cents literally goes to the final cause. The rest goes to administration and whatnot. And I feel
yeah.
like homeless is the same thing. A bulk of the money is not going to folks like you directly. It's going through the infrastructure of fighting homeless, and that's like
Well, there's so
profit.
much corruption in not only the politicians, but also there are 501(c)s that are in the pockets of those politicians.
And real estate
And
developers, they love this
yep,
because people
yep.
they're buying these buildings at full cost. They don't care because it's
Oh,
government
they
money.
buy them at deals here in Oakland. There
What do you hope to see once? I mean, what do you hope to see this year? Because interest rates going up, so there's bound to be changes in the economy. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? There's a lot of people that's on a back of rents, waiting probably for their landlord to send them eviction notices because they haven't paid. I mean, I don't think it's going to get better in the coming year, especially with the
yeah,
war too. So right, so everything's gone
yeah,
up in price.
exactly. So here's what I can tell you. I lived through a period earlier in American history like this. It's called the 70s through the 80s. We
Me
went
too.
through the exact same thing. We went through the Vietnam War. We went through the decoupling of America's money from the gold standard.
Yeah,
We
thank you,
saw
Nixon.
the fall of Saigon and the refugees that came here to America, and I love the Vietnamese people. Yeah, they're they're great people, and
Industrious.
and they're hardworking. Yeah, and then we saw inflation with Jimmy Carter years going into Reagan years. We saw mortgage interest rates. I paid 15% mortgage rate,
Yeah,
and
listen to that, people.
I was a highly qualified buyer, and I paid 15%, and that wasn't the highest.
Yes.
I got 3% off. The high rate was 18% back then,
Yeah. Right. And now
and it
America
was
is
horrible.
struggling with the current interest rate, and they can't
Hmm.
afford a bigger house with a quarter point rise. Like, what the heck? You guys haven't lived. You guys don't know what's going on. You guys only see what you've seen the last few years. You're right. In the 70s, it was crazy. Gas
Yeah,
prices,
and
everything, in
we had
relative to the
OPEC.
cost of money back
Yeah,
then.
yeah, we
So,
had OPEC back then. That was horrible. Yeah, and uh, the oil short, or yeah, crude oil shortages, standing in line at a gas station on odd or even days here in California to get 10 gallons.
so are you seeing that we might go through similar challenges in within the next few months?
I don't see an oil crisis. I see some pricing because we don't get much oil from the Middle East, so we're not
No, not
dependent
anymore.
on it. And we get a lot of our oil, crude oil, from either Canada
Canada,
or Venezuela,
dirty
and
oil.
mostly dirty. But it's still not Middle East. We get about 16% still from the Middle East, so that's very low, and so we don't have that dependency. But again, it's the inflation that's going to hurt everybody that we're already seeing. I literally watched a 10-pound bag of chicken go from $4.80 to just short of $8.
Really? Holy
Yes,
cow!
and that's and there's some contributing factors because right now, if you have been following, there's an avian flu going on through the chicken and poultry farms of America,
They're
and
calling
so
them now.
they're having to destroy tens of hundreds of thousands of birds,
Too much
and so
antibiotics.
mhm, antibiotics,
Yeah.
diseases that are coming into play, um, plus the grains that they're feeding. We don't. They don't know where it comes from. A lot of the grains and everything that we receive from overseas comes from China, and unfortunately, there's no quality control. We saw it with our dog foods,
Yeah.
where our animals, our pets, were poisoned. I lost pets during the first one that didn't even get published back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and so
I mean, Chinese
so
manufacturers literally
they
sell
were
fake
poisoning our
baby
dogs.
food. No,
Yeah,
they sell
yeah,
fake
but yeah,
babies food to their
yeah,
own Chinese citizens. I mean,
yeah. Anything for a buck.
yeah. I mean, you I don't know.
Profits
Anyway,
over people.
yeah, it's I hope for the better. I hope you get voted in as the mayor, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe in a couple of months when everything's up on ramp, I'll revisit with this chat again and then give you some more support. All your information is down on the link in descriptions with regard to your Facebook page, your GoFundMe page, and then once your campaign's ready, then I'll set up put the campaign in there too. I really
Background to sit in that seat. They don't have advisors to sit in that seat. I've done everything that a mayor does and more. I could actually lead this country if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I've done everything. I've worked with budgets of $5.5 billion for my region. And so I know how budgeting goes. I know how to work with personnel. I know about housing. I know about infrastructure. So there's nobody that's in the Oakland mayoral campaign that has my experience and background and can bring the resources of the federal government to our aid. There's nobody qualified for that. They don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the staffing to do what I do. And everything that's being done right now in Oakland, because I've influenced that in that direction.
Go do your own research, see what Mr. Derrick has done for his communities in Oakland, and I hope for all the best for you.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm a third generation Oaklander. So my family set foot in the Bay Area back in 1850.
Wow.
We settled in San Francisco in the 1860s, came to Oakland just in front of the 1900s. We set up the most successful cannery to go against Del Monte back in the day. We were the third largest cannery on the entire West Coast. So we're one of the families that beat out all of the racist laws at the time that prevented Asian people from owning businesses and land. We were the first Asian family to own land in California.
That's an entire conversation we have about racism
Okay.
in the future, because
Yeah.
I faced racism when I first came here, but you rarely hear Asians talk about that, because we just, you know what, tuck our head in and move forward. That's all we do.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
complain because it is what it is, right?
That's
And
right.
look at where all the Asians are. Most
Mm-hmm.
of them own businesses. Most of them have successful careers. You get what you put in an American dream.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and so
We were.
all the best to
Yeah.
you. I thank you very much
Yeah.
for your time, Derrick.
Thank you so much.
And we'll to do it again.
All right.
Revisit. Much mahalo.
All right, on. Thank you.
Namaste. Bye bye.